People with unstable exes, what's the craziest thing they did after you guys broke up? We were engaged 6 months from getting married and had been together 5 years. He had started getting mean during the last 2 years or so. We got into a fight, and he decided it was the time to tell me he'd been picking up random women at the bar and bringing them home to bang in our bed. This was while I was working 2, sometimes 3 jobs to support him through school. When I told him that was it and I was leaving, I knew it was going to be bad. He locked me in our bedroom, no phone, and he had nailed the window shut. I spent a day in there before one of our friends stopped by, and I was able to holler and get them to let me out. I had a couple of friends help me collect the few things I was taking because I was afraid to be alone with him. Most of my belongings were left behind. He would harass me, scream, beg, and cry during the 3 trips we made to move my things. I was bartending back then, and he'd show up and wait in the parking lot until I got off work. He'd try to push me around and even decked me a couple of times because I wasn't listening to him trying to apologize. He followed me to my new apartment, and I know he broke in at least twice while I was at work, leaving messages to let me know he'd been there. From the bar, I had made friends with several county sheriff's officers, as they often had to break up fights there. I told them about it, and they gave him a friendly talk one night when he was waiting for me outside. I never saw him again. First of all, this man was never a partner. He was running a parasitic con. You're working 2 to 3 jobs to support him through school, and while you're literally grinding yourself down to keep the whole thing alive, he's out there bringing random women into your bed like it's a trophy hunt? That confession wasn't even honesty. That was cruelty as a weapon. Story 2. She stabbed out the tires on my car, smashed the windows, and took a dump on the driver's seat at about noon, all while screaming about me cheating on her. This happened while I was at work, with the car parked right in front of a camera. There were plenty of witnesses. My first notification wasn't a phone call. It was the police walking into my workplace and asking me to come outside. She was furious because I had started sleeping with someone else 2 days after we broke up. She ended up going to jail for about a month, mostly because she was a complete a-hole to the judge. My boss loaned me a car while mine was being dealt with. Insurance paid out pretty well for the damage, and her parents cut me a check that was way larger than what the damage actually cost. I've never spoken to her since. She's apparently still good friends with my sister, and according to her, burned little effigies to try to cause me some kind of white girl voodoo pain. There are a lot of very good reasons why I broke up with her. Story 3. He smashed my new 50-inch TV, slashed all my tires, and threw my laptop in the bathtub. He had to pay for everything, though, so I didn't press charges. The dumb A even left me a bunch of texts saying he would do it. My phone was dead at the time, so I didn't see them until after the damage was done, making him easy to catch. Perfect timing, too, since it was close to Christmas, and I ended up buying a nicer 55-inch TV thanks to all the after-Christmas deals. Story 4. I broke up with her, and she said she didn't want me around the apartment I was mostly paying for. I told her I needed access to my belongings, so I would have to come in to get them. She flipped out, trying to wrench my keys out of my pocket and hitting me. When that didn't work, she physically blocked the door to the room I was in and wouldn't let me out. I tried to squeeze past her without pushing too hard, and she started slapping and scratching me. I got tired of it and threatened to call the cops. I dialed, and she finally got out of the way. Unfortunately, the cops had to come anyway because it was a domestic dispute, and they instantly started trying to drag me out of my own apartment. I had to explain that I was the one who called and that she had become abusive, and that I wasn't going to get physical with her. Story 5. The D-bag confessed that he poked holes in the rubber the very last time we did it, trying to get me pregnant. He knew our relationship was falling apart and thought that would keep me around. He even went to my family's house to try and get them on his side. He was stupid enough to think I'd take him back just because he told the truth. I didn't end up pregnant with his kid. Thank God. Story 6. During college, I went on one date with a girl I'd met in line at the bookstore. It was a nice dinner, followed by drinks at a bar, and the night ended at her place. I thought I legitimately liked her. The next evening, she called to ask if we could hang out, but I had a birthday party to attend with a bunch of guy friends and wouldn't be available. She showed up at the bar anyway. I chatted for a minute, but explained I was spending time with my friends and would call her another time. She seemed agitated. As the party went on, I started getting texts from her every 10 minutes, which I ignored. They got progressively angrier. You should ditch your friends. Why are you being such a jerk tonight? Screw you, a-hole. I swear I'm not crazy. I'm sorry, come over and I'll make it up to you. Screw you, etc. The next morning, I had received a total of 24 text messages, 8 calls, 10 AIM messages, 2 Facebook messages, and 1 long email explaining herself. I saw her in passing several times through the rest of college, and she usually gave me an angry glare. Story 7. I was my ex's emergency contact. He broke up with me in August, and having been dumped, I stopped taking his calls and answering his texts. This went on for a month and a half. In early October, I got a call from the hospital saying they needed me to come in because I was his emergency contact. He was a delivery driver for a restaurant and had been hit by a car. Thankfully, he was just scratched and bruised. Nothing major. We checked out, and I dropped him off at home. As he was getting out of the car, he said, "I'm glad you came. I didn't know what else to do to finally get you to talk to me again." I was livid. I told him to get out. Story 8. She texted me one day and said she didn't want to be together anymore and that she wanted to go back to her ex. She was kind of a controlling girl anyway, and I didn't mind. But 2 days later, she admitted she hadn't been on birth control while we were seeing each other and had lied so she could try to have a kid with me. She just wanted a kid. Basically, I was sperm to her. My 19-year-old self freaked out for a few weeks, imagining a terrible life with a shitty job and a horrible baby mama situation. Luckily, she wasn't pregnant, and she kept begging me to hook up like 3 times in a month. I said no thanks every time, and she ended up getting pregnant by some other guy. I just laugh every time I think about her really dumb life. Story 9. She told me that her ex, who they were still together at the time, enrolled in the same junior college class so they could be together. One day, he caught her glancing at another guy in class and beat the shit out of her that night, so she got with me instead. We lived 25 miles apart and I could only see her about 4 days a week. Eventually, she broke up with me because I couldn't see her every day. She went back to the woman beater dude, saying she preferred getting beaten because it showed his love through attention. A year later, I ran into her randomly with a baby. She said she regretted leaving me. Whew. Story 10. Tore a small ornamental tree out of my front lawn and threw it onto my roof. Created a fake Facebook account using a mutual, distant friend's name and started talking to me for weeks until I agreed to meet. He showed up expecting the old switcheroo to draw me back in, and when it didn't, he tried to shame me for meeting strangers. Called me up sobbing and told me he had AIDS. There was more, but these are just the highlights that still rankle a bit. Story 11. This had been a long time coming. All the same guy, all within a couple of months. Not necessarily in the right order, since this was years ago. Broke into my second-story apartment. Broke down my bedroom door, which had a bolted lock. Stole my dog and threatened to dump her in a field if I didn't leave the coworkers I was hanging out with after my shift ended. Proposed to me, even though I had said for years that I wasn't ready for marriage and wouldn't even consider it until I finished college. Oh, and the ring was his mom's old engagement ring. Cute, except his parents were divorced and hated each other. Also, we weren't even dating. Stole my camera and MacBook Pro, which I never got back. Hundreds of calls, emails, and threats. Saw me at PetSmart with a guy friend. As we were leaving, he followed us for miles into town. I had my friend drop me off so I could run into work, but my ex chased after me, leading to a huge public fight. So embarrassing. Came to my apartment where I met him outside with my dog to get my keys back, which he had stolen during a break-in. He started screaming and physically hurting me. I tried to call 911 and he grabbed my phone and smashed it on the ground. I got away and ran for help. I finally filed a police report to start building toward a restraining order. I know, it should have happened sooner. I had a smashed phone, bruises, and the parking lot had cameras. He denied everything and lied to the officer, then got angry at me because he might lose his job over it. He worked at a nursing home. I really hope he did lose his job. Continued calling me and my mother on and off for years after we broke up. I never once answered a call, text, or email. Drove 2 hours to my new college and waited outside one of my classes to catch me. I had made a guy friend in that class who took the same bus route home, and we would talk on the bus. My ex saw us walking out together and started laying on his car horn, screaming at me. I later heard through an old friend that he now dates someone who looks just like me. Creepy. Who? That's the first time I've really talked about this or told anyone, other than my now husband when we started dating shortly after all that mess. I'm sure I'm leaving a lot out, but I don't want to dig too deeply into those memories. Edit. When he broke into my second-story apartment, he did it by standing on the fence of the first-floor unit, jumping up, grabbing the bottom of my deck, and pulling himself over onto my balcony. I never locked that door because I didn't think it was even possible. More keeps coming back. He also threatened to off himself if I didn't get back together with him so many times that one day I snapped and told him to do it because I was never getting back together with him. Story 12. My ex of 2 years broke up with me because she didn't want to be in a long-distance relationship while studying abroad. Perfectly fine by me. She was doing 2 stints in a row and I wouldn't see her for a year and a half, from summer to the end of the next summer. About 3 weeks after we broke up, and roughly 2 weeks after she started studying abroad, she Skyped me asking for help getting a guy to date her. Being the always overly nice guy that I am, I said, "Sure, but if I do this, I expect you to cut all ties with me forever unless it's an emergency." She complied. I told her to just ask him out, it works, and hung up. A month later, she Skyped me again, claiming it was an emergency. She wanted to end it because he wasn't like Spanish me after all, but didn't know how. I told her the best dong repellent is to ask him to help her pick up another guy, and I hung up. Story 13. I dated a guy my senior year of high school who went to a different school. I was 18, and he told me he was 17. I broke it off after I moved away to college. He ended up adding all of my new college friends, and then contacted them to explain that he was 15 when we dated, and that I was a pedophile who liked little boys. I called him and asked what the hell he was talking about. He explained that if I lost all my new friends and had a miserable time, I'd come back home and we would be together. For the record, he was actually 16 during the 2 months we dated. Still not cool. That's villain-level manipulation. He tried to ruin your life just to control you. Calling you a predator because he lied about his age is straight-up character assassination. And the "so you'll come back home" part? That's not love. That's creepy, calculated obsession. Story 14. I can pick out a few things from the vast ocean of crazy that is my ex. She called 2 different jobs and told my bosses that I was a bad person, crazy, unreliable, and should be fired. She actually called one of my bosses about 40 times in a row. She threw the top of a barbecue grill at me because I left to go to work. She threw gravel at my car after I didn't agree to her schedule. That's right, I got her pregnant. Now I'm the custodial parent, by the way, and she only sees the kid on weekends. She threw a metal chair at my sliding glass doors. She got me arrested. This one takes some explanation. She was in a rage because I was going to drop off our child at her mom's. She had found out I was seeing someone else, many months after we'd broken up. I had stopped in the street in front of her mom's house to get some of the child's stuff out of the trunk. The kid was asleep in the back of the car. She pulls up behind me, jumps out, and starts taking my girlfriend's stuff out of the trunk. She mocks this girl who she'd never met for wearing makeup, then slaps the bag off the back of my car into the snow. As I try to pick it up, she kicks it. The bag opens, makeup goes everywhere. And as I try to retrieve it, she keeps trying to kick it away. I stand up and push her back on her sternum area. This was a mistake. She calls the cops, says I was abusing her, and I spend the night in jail. I could go on, but I think the picture is painted. Edit. A few more things. She smashed the lights and windshield of my car. I loaned her a newer car we had bought together so she could go to Colorado for work. She took it for a month, driving all the way from Kansas to Oregon and everywhere in between without telling me, leaving me to care for our child. She got arrested when I took the cops with me to get the car back. A few weeks later, she tried to steal the car back and damaged the window. She was involuntarily committed several times for self-harm actions. She was a peach. I get to see her in court today. Story 15. She would text me, telling me that her daughter missed me and that she wanted to work things out. Come to find out, she was telling a mutual friend that I was making her go places when she was the one calling and asking me to meet her. I also found out that 4 months after we last slept together, she was planning to try to report me to the police for forcing myself on her. All of this came to me from a mutual friend who realized she was lying. She claimed I had punched her, but there were no bruises. Keep in mind, there's a 1-foot height difference and nearly 200-pound weight difference between us. Honestly, she had been so honest and straightforward. Before that, this really broke my heart all over again. To think she would spread that kind of rumor about me when all I ever did was care for her and be patient with her. And her daughter destroyed me even more than the actual breakup. Story 16. Let's see. Kind of hard to pick the single craziest thing, so here's a short list instead. 1. I was the head varsity cheer coach at my town's high school, and she called the athletic director with an anonymous tip claiming I was sleeping with several of the girls. Obviously, I wasn't. I wouldn't even allow myself to be alone with fewer than 3 of them, because even a rumor like that could ruin my life and career. 2. She came over to my house uninvited to talk, meaning yell at me and probably assault me. When I refused to come outside, she tried kicking in the door. When that didn't work, she stormed back to her car, but not before kicking my car and leaving a massive dent in the side. I watched her do it, and she still denied it. 3. She called the police and told them I was selling drugs to high school kids. Of course I wasn't. I wasn't selling it to anyone, let alone minors, which would have endangered both my coaching job and my work as a substitute teacher for the school district at the time. 4. She slashed her own tire and called the police to report that I had done it. Luckily, I was verifiably out of town during the supposed window of opportunity, so nothing came of it. 5. We shared a storage unit, and during the breakup, she stole my key. She then held my belongings for ransom until I met her ridiculous demands. I didn't, and she ended up keeping, destroying, giving away, or selling all of my stuff. This included books, DVDs, clothes, a nice expensive body piercing kit, and a ton of irreplaceable mementos. 6. She messaged and harassed me on Facebook, then got upset that I wasn't being very nice to her and called the police on me for harassing her. 7. She stalked my Reddit profile, created an account just to harass me, then created another one to keep talking shit after realizing the mods had done something to her account and I wasn't getting her messages. I reported her again and haven't heard from her since. I'm hoping the mods banned her IP so she couldn't access Reddit at all because that would feel extremely justicey. Or maybe she was just warned and is still checking my post history. She has since moved on to trying to ruin other people's lives, unfortunately including people I know. And this is just what she did after we broke up. Story 17. My ex walked into Thanksgiving dinner while my stepfather was putting the turkey on the table and demanded to know if I was sleeping with the girl who was there. She then tried to steal my phone, and after 10 more minutes of screaming obscenities, she proceeded to steal my bed. I mean, she literally took my mattress and box spring, carried them through the house, and dumped them on the front lawn. She quickly realized that her Honda Civic wasn't going to be able to transport the mattress and box spring, so she took the only reasonable course of action. She stood on them so I couldn't get them back. She made a phone call, and a few minutes later, her sister showed up with a truck. She screamed, "Have fun banging on the floor!" Loaded my bed into the truck, then got in her car and left. That was 2 years ago. I'm still with the other girl, and yes, I did enjoy banging her on the floor. Edit. A lot of people are asking why I didn't call the cops. Honestly, it would have been useless. It would have delayed the meal. They wouldn't have gotten to my house in time to stop her. And by the time they arrived, the bed was already gone, probably in whatever dumpster she threw it in. Story 18. A week after I had kicked her out, she walked into my apartment drunk as hell with her new boyfriend and a couple of his friends at 3 a.m. Guess she still had a key. I jumped out of bed, ran into the living room, and asked her what the hell she was doing there. Her new boyfriend got in my face, claiming she and I were in a common law marriage because we had lived together for so long, and they were too drunk to drive home. So they were going to sleep in the living room. I threatened to call the police, voices got raised, and my ex finally said they'd be more comfortable sleeping in their car outside. I went back to bed where a new girl was still bare and confused. Story 19. I broke up with him. We were on good terms and planned to try staying friends. Within the first week, he became bitter and tried to make me unhappy, so I cut off contact. After that, he essentially started stalking me. At the time, I had no caller ID, so he harassed me through phone calls, texts, and Facebook until I blocked him. Afterward, he called from other people's phones and payphones. He began showing up in places he knew I would be around my home and my university, and would try to talk to me or follow me. He even showed up at my house very late at night, despite the fact that I had moved since we were dating. He essayed me, verbally harassed me, and told me he would have me again and that I wanted him, and so on. This went on for about 6 months, and we had only been together for just over 7 months. Story 20. After a turbulent period of emotional abuse, I finally had the courage to break it off and moved back to my hometown, hundreds of miles away. She kept messaging me, saying she needed me and claiming she had hurt herself because of it. As someone who had previously been in a deep depressive pit, I took this seriously and tried to help her. 5 minutes later, it was exposed as a lie, and another 5 minutes after that, I received an email with a picture of her wrist. That was the final straw. I did a complete 180 and removed her from my life permanently. Story 21. She attacked me with a butcher knife, emptied my savings account, and then wrote $2,500 in bad checks in exchange for cash. She pawned all of my belongings and stole all my photo albums, including the only pictures of our daughter who had died from SIDS. She proceeded to call my first sergeant every day to accuse me of physical abuse, even when I hadn't seen her for days, and he knew that. She broke into my house and stole my son's heart medicine from the fridge, then accused me of being irresponsible so I'd have to turn him over to her just so he could get his medication. Later, she signed an affidavit trading custody of him in exchange for my pickup truck. Seriously, after I started dating again, she climbed in through a window, cut my girlfriend's clothing, and stole all her money from her purse. I could go on and on. She ended up in a mental hospital and now is one step away from living in a van down by the river. I've been happily married for the last 15 years. We survived her crazy behavior. Story 22. A friend's ex takes the prize. After being broken up for a few months, she called him, hysterical, saying, "Why did you have to take it to this level and bring the courts into it?" He had no idea what she was talking about, and she replied, "Why did you have to file a restraining order against me? I didn't even do anything." My buddy hadn't filed a restraining order, but apparently one was sent to the school where she worked, and she had left it in her office. She asked him to meet her there on a Saturday so she could go over it with him, and he could witness her signing it. Luckily, my friend isn't an idiot and avoided whatever messed up murder session she had planned. This was just the tip of the iceberg of her craziness. I have so many stories about this girl. Whenever I talk to my friend, we have a guess what the ex did now conversation. Edit. For those confused, there was no restraining order. She made it. She made up to get him to meet her at her office. So, since a bunch of you asked, here's another story. My friend R was the ex-boyfriend of the crazy ex. A bunch of friends from my home state came to visit me recently for Memorial Day weekend, and one of the girls, B, is still good friends with X. She knows X is insane, but their friendship continues by not bringing up R when they're together. R and a bunch of guys arrive at my house when another friend, T, pulls up X's Instagram feed. There's a picture of her on a plane with the caption, "Off to California." We joked about her crashing our trip for a few minutes and gave R a hard time, but brushed it off because California is huge. A few minutes later, R is sitting on the couch with a worried look. I go over and he asks, "Do you think she's actually going to come?" I tried to explain we were joking, but he stopped me mid-sentence and said, "No, you don't understand. This bitch is crazy." About an hour after, B's flight landed and she arrived at our place. The topic came up again. B looked just as surprised but said, "There's no way she's that crazy. She has a cousin in San Jose. She's probably visiting her." Later that night, we were at a bar when B pulled me aside to show me a text from X. "Hey, my friend flaked out on me. I'm at SFO and I need a place to crash tonight." I reacted appropriately by yelling, "Holy crap, this bitch is crazy," and ran to R to warn him. When B didn't respond to X's text, she started calling. On the third call, about 15 of us went outside and gathered around her phone on speaker. X said her friend was supposed to pick her up but flaked, so she just needed a place to stay for the night. One of my friends, N, yells, "You can sleep on the ground, you crazy bish." X hears and thinks it's R. She starts yelling into the phone, but N, in his drunken state, starts singing, "Na na na, hey, goodbye." We got 10 bars of the song in before she hung up. R woke up the next morning with a manifesto of an email from her about how he's a terrible person. We read it out loud over bottomless mimosas at brunch and laughed at her expense. She eventually had to call her cousin, who drove from San Jose to SFO, to pick her up and let her crash at her house for the weekend. Story 23. I was the unstable ex many times. I would pester, call, guilt trip, and insult. Then, I started seeing a therapist and was put on medication, which helped me realize how terribly I treated these women. I don't bother them anymore, but I would love to apologize and explain that the chemicals in my brain were unbalanced and that I am truly sorry for everything. I can't, though, because I don't want to bother them. Story 24. I've posted this before, but I'll say it again. My ex thought I was sleeping with my best friend. I'm a woman, my best friend is a man. So he set his apartment on fire and offed his cats. I don't think the fires actually killed the cats either. This was months after we broke up, and I never slept with my best friend. People got trapped in the apartment and had to be rescued. Story 25. Oh, this one was a doozy. I ended up breaking up with her after I found out she was an addict, an exotic dancer, and had been sleeping around when not with me. She then told me she was pregnant with my child. For various reasons, I knew this was untrue and told her she could keep it. A few weeks later, she came back and accused me of giving her chlamydia, which was also untrue, and threatened to tell all my friends that I was a dirty, terrible ex and that she hoped I rotted in hell and my dong fell off. Luckily, I had gone to the doctor immediately after leaving her and got tested for everything under the sun. I was completely clean. I even offered to send her the paperwork to prove it, and she stopped talking to me. Oh, and she punched me in the face twice. Story 26. 1. I left a work meeting early one day because I had an eye doctor's appointment. He found out and showed up at my house with a pregnancy test, yelling about how I was keeping his child from him. He didn't believe I went to the eye doctor and thought I was at an OB appointment instead. He demanded I take the test but insisted on being in the room so he knew I didn't fake it. I called him crazy and told him to leave. He said he was going to call the police and have me arrested for slander, then claimed he would get a copy of my medical records from the police station. 2. I moved away, and he started telling people that I had died. He told everyone I offed myself after miscarrying our child. 3. I found a listing on Craigslist casual encounters under women seeking women. It said the poster wanted pictures of other girls, which would have been fine, except the picture used was of me, in my underwear, at the ripe age of 16. I confronted him about it since that picture had only ever been sent to him. He claimed it was super easy to intercept photos like that and that someone probably stole it to be a creep and get pictures from girls. He said that because he was so good at IT, he could have it taken down. He even claimed he crashed all of Craigslist and tracked the IP address of the poster to a small town about 45 minutes from where I used to live. I don't know anyone who lives there. Story 27. She got pregnant and told me it was mine. We went through the entire process, facing a moral dilemma, and eventually had the abortion together. Then, a couple of weeks later, her boyfriend knocked on my door, upset. As we talked it through and did the math, it became very clear that we had aborted his child. Story 28. I drove to my mom's house. It was summer during college, so I was staying there, and stood in the driveway screaming for half an hour. There was a block party happening at the time. Another one met a drug dealer, got hooked on pills, and became his kept woman for a while. She eventually left him, cleaned up, went through NA, had a baby, and got married unhappily. A baby and an unhappy marriage is about on par for your early 30s, I reckon. Edit. Just checked Facebook. They got divorced and are now fighting for custody. Even more on par for the early 30s. Story 29. She would constantly call me, asking why we didn't hang out or talk anymore. Then she would immediately ask if I had kissed or slept with anyone yet. When I got a new girlfriend, she tried to start trouble and actually messaged my new girlfriend through Facebook. That, in turn, caused my ex to show up at the bar I was hanging out at, in her pajamas, trying to drag me outside. I had to threaten to have security remove her to get her to stop. She's left me alone for the most part since then. Story 30. He stalked the new guy I was dating, then turned his attention back to me. He showed up at my house at 7 a.m. I worked second shift. Over the course of a week, forced his way into my apartment and gave me a speech about why I shouldn't date the new guy and should date him instead. He followed the new guy from his favorite bar to my place and left a dozen roses at my door that night. He showed up at my apartment again after the police had told him to stop. I called the cops and he told them everything he claimed I had of his, which had been given to me during our relationship. He eventually admitted they were gifts, but all he wanted back was the dog's flea shampoo. Story 31. He called me plastered and proceeded to spout a bunch of gibberish in a Jamaican accent for an hour straight. The dude is as white and Canadian as you can get. It was so ridiculous that we recorded it, and we still have the recordings. After that same breakup, he went and told one of his white trash friends that I had been talking about her behind her back. She lost it and threatened to beat the crap out of me. Sneaky bastard knew I wouldn't hit a pregnant woman, so any confrontation would have ended with me taking a beating. It took a pointed inquiry from a couple of my scary drug dealer friends before the issue mysteriously cleared up on its own. Edit. Some people wanted to hear the recordings. The really heavy Jamaican stuff I can't upload because there are references to locations and last names that I don't want to edit out. I figured this snippet gives you a sense of what I'm talking about. Plus, his ranting is hilarious. His accent is at about 0020, and yes, it's terrible. Enjoy. Story 32. Okay, so I dated a twin, and my best friend was dating her sister, so I got the inside scoop on everything. He heard she was going to break up with him and decided to break up with her first. He definitely deserved to be dumped, but that's way too much to get into. Anyway, he breaks up with her, then asks her out again an hour later. She says no, and he threatens to off himself. Later that night, around 10:30, she gets a text saying, "Check your mailbox." Inside are flowers and a huge note. For the next 2 months, he threatens to off himself, texts her mom, her friends, her sister, everyone our age, some people's moms, and sends them pages of messages about how he needs her in his life and what he can do to fix things. He keeps saying life is nothing without her and that he wants to off himself. He texted me too, but I cut him off after the second message when I realized he was copying and pasting the same long messages and sending them to everyone. 3 months later, she starts talking to someone new, and word gets back to him that he tried to pay someone $50 to beat the guy up. They had to block him from my girlfriend's phone, his ex-girlfriend's phone, and even their mom's phone because of how many messages he was sending. There's no real way to describe it. Now, 7 months later, he still texts me every once in a while saying he can't sleep, that he needs her, and that he wants her back. Story 33. I'll start by saying we lived together before our demise. She cheated after 6 years together. About a month after we broke it off, I started noticing subtle differences around my house. A chair would be moved, a lamp would be on, that sort of thing. I didn't think much of it at first because I'm a guy and tend to forget to turn off lights or push chairs in. Eventually, it became obvious that things were being moved. That was just part one of the craziness. My backsliding glass door doesn't lock. She had been coming in while I was gone and messing with stuff. Part two was the smell. It started faint, just a slight funk throughout the house. After a few months, it got worse and worse. I decided to investigate, thinking maybe a rat or squirrel had died in the attic. I checked. No dead animals. Eventually, I pinpointed the smell to an air conditioning vent. I opened it, and bam. There were 40 bloody, moldy tampons stuffed inside. Story 34. He was never really my boyfriend. He was a friend who fell in love with me. The short version is that after I finally got him to leave me alone, after a fist fight, he started dating another girl. I noticed her slumping, cringing, and hunching. When I spoke to her, she confided in me about his abuse. I told her she didn't need to put up with it and that she had me. He threatened to off me, and because of that, she left him. A day later, she went to a mutual friend's house to tell him to leave me alone. He wanted me to go too, but I refused. He off her, then himself. Because I didn't show up. Because she didn't listen when I told her not to go. Because I didn't text her fast enough. Because I denied him. I owe my life to her. and I will never be able to repay her. Story 35. He faked his own kidnapping. He sent me a text saying he had been kidnapped and told me to meet him at a park. I didn't know where the park was, so I called the county sheriff, my uncle's brother, and he told me to stay where I was and ignore him. About 4 hours later, I got a call from the police. They had him. He had wrapped his head in duct tape, written my phone number on it, taken his clothes off, and tied himself to a park bench. In February, in the north, it was freezing. When I didn't show up after a few hours, he went to a nearby house and told them to call me. They called the police instead. Story 36. We had a daughter. Even though we were separated, I had regular visits. I came by on a Friday, everything was fine, and then she suddenly flipped her shit and demanded I leave, right as I was already leaving anyway. I went back the next week and had a couple more visits as usual. About a month later, I got a call from the cops. Apparently, the night she flipped out, she had called in a domestic abuse claim. I denied all knowledge. At first, the police were satisfied there was no foul play and no incident, but about a month after, that I still had to go in because she pressed private charges after the police didn't find anything worth pursuing themselves. She said, no evidence, etc. Then she stopped me from seeing my daughter and requested a no-contact order. That led to 185 days of BS before I finally got her into family court and regained visitation. I couldn't see my daughter for an entire summer. Fortunately, the judge lost patience with her when she started arguing about money. I volunteered to handle transportation because she never made any effort, and I didn't want to trust or rely on her. The compromise was reducing child support to offset transportation costs. The judge was fine with the arrangement. My ex was not. She's very money hungry, but the judge shut it down, the order went through, and I finally got my court order. There was no comeuppance for her denying access or making a false police claim. That's just how it goes, I guess. Before all that drama, I'd gone there once to get more of my things. She tossed my shit on the floor, and when I bent down, she elbowed me in the back. She even threw a dustpan full of garbage at me, dustpan included. After we broke up, well, it's been an ongoing saga of horse crap. She keeps playing games and power moves, withholding information until the last possible minute or not telling me at all. She quibbles about being unable to travel 5 kilometers to drop our daughter off after I travel 105 kilometers to her city. She quibbles about not being able to afford $10 to $20 for cab fare to bring my daughter to me. Once, when I was waiting at the Greyhound station without a way to get cash, I had to turn back without my daughter. Conveniently, as soon as I was on the bus heading home, she suddenly found the cash. Oh, and things like not showing up for family court, which only dragged everything out and cost me more money. I don't qualify for legal aid, but that didn't matter to her since she did and paid nothing. That was money I would have much rather spent on our daughter. She's extremely stubborn and, in my opinion, likely bipolar. Though she'll never see anyone or accept any fault, she projects constantly and denies the rest. She also denied me the chance to take my daughter back to my home country for a visit. My grandfather was 102 years old, and it was fair to say he wouldn't be around much longer. I really wanted my daughter to meet him. She denied it. The only reason she gave was, I don't trust you. My grandfather died later that year, so I never got the chance to take my daughter to see him. I was lucky enough to take my daughter back for a visit last year, though that almost didn't happen either. Even though I covered all the costs for a cab to the airport, including a return trip back to her city, she nearly didn't bring my daughter to the airport so we could leave. When we returned, she also refused to pick her up, again despite me covering all the costs. What's surprising is that she tried to guilt me by saying she hadn't seen our daughter for 9 days, yet somehow didn't see the irony in refusing to greet or pick her up from the airport. Logic isn't something you often find with her, sadly. And when our relationship fell apart, I never faltered on child support. I left her with all the furniture except my computer desk, the washing and drying machines, and all possessions except my clothing, my computers, and the things I owned before we were together. I did my best to give her no grounds to punish me, legally or emotionally. Story 37. He confessed that he had cheated on me with his ex and that he got her pregnant. I couldn't believe it, so I told him the relationship was over. He immediately began crying hysterically, apologizing and begging me to have mercy on him. I insisted he drop me off at home and told him I never wanted to see him again. That's when he started banging his head against the steering wheel, setting off the horn every time he hit it. People passing by looked over, confused, while I gathered my things to leave. I was mortified. Then he started faking a seizure while still crying and begging me to stay, spit coming out of his mouth, violently shaking and repeating, "Take me back! Bang! Take me back!" Bang over and over for a good 3 minutes. He had a history of behavior like this, so it was just another show. He does not have a seizure disorder, by the way. I opened the car door and walked away, heartbroken that I'd been cheated on, but relieved I was finally free and that I wasn't the one who ended up pregnant. The whole thing was ugly, sad, and disturbing. Story 38. I could tell she was a bit unstable. As soon as she started dating me and found out I had money, she stopped caring about her studies. I noticed and lost interest. I like smart women, and she picked up on that. She began saying she would off herself if I broke up with her, and that she wanted my baby, which was the last thing I wanted at the time. After I broke up with her, she proposed to me in front of most of my friends. I said no and referenced the breakup that had just happened, and she completely lost it. For the following years before I left town, she did things like this. She told lies to anyone who knew me, claiming I was a terrible person who hurt her or assayed her. She would call me on my birthday from different numbers just to yell, "Screw you." She blamed me for everything that went wrong in her life, from her grades to family problems, mental health issues, and eating problems. She messaged me to tell me about her new relationships. She threatened my family members if they were younger than her or physically smaller. Not nearly as bad as some other Redditors' exes, but she was a horribly obnoxious ex who seemed determined to ruin my life. I do hope she's doing better and has her life under control. She messaged me late last year saying something along the lines of, "All my problems are your fault, so I'm just going to stop thinking about you. My therapist told me to. Good night, screw you." I suppose that counts as improvement. Story 39. Before I came out, I did the whole trying to be straight thing. I grew up active in ministry and was dating the pastor's daughter in my late teens. When we broke up, she showed up at my house with a friend. I let them in to talk, but told her I had somewhere to be. When she refused to leave, I said, "Listen, I have to shower and go. We've talked, we'll see each other at church, but I've got to go and shower." And I got in the shower. While I was in there, she came into the bathroom, undressed, and joined me in the shower. Things happened. But afterward, when I said, "No, this doesn't mean we're getting back together," she ran to her dad and told her family that I had essayed her. If it hadn't been for the mutual friend confirming that she came into the bathroom and got into the shower with me, and her older brother saying he knew we had been physically active and that it was always consensual, my life could have turned out far more messed up than it already did. As it was, I was asked to leave the church and my so-called sins were exposed to everyone. Story 40. She sent a letter to my mom explaining what a terrible person I was. I should note that I was completely honest during the relationship. When I first realized I didn't want to be in it anymore, I said clearly, firmly, and politely that it wasn't working for me and that I was sorry, but I couldn't continue the relationship. She told me that because I had once said I loved her, I was obligated to love her forever. I explained that wasn't how I felt anymore, and that when I had said it, I truly did love her. She insisted you can never stop loving someone, that once you love them, that's it, I told her. I disagreed. That was the main point of contention. She sent a handwritten 8-page letter, single-spaced, college-ruled, to my mom, detailing all the horrible things I'd supposedly done and what a bad person I was. My mom read the first 2 sentences, tossed it in the trash, told me I needed better taste in women, and said I'd dodged a bullet. Years later, still angry, she posted every personal AIM and ICQ conversation and every email we'd ever exchanged on a blog, complete with my name, then spammed it to people I worked with and people who knew me personally. Lots of embarrassing things you say late at night over AIM or ICQ, things you never expect anyone else to read. Some of it is still used by friends as inside jokes. None of it made me want to be with her again, though, so I'm still not sure what her end goal was. Story 41. I dated a girl for about a year and a half. I was her first serious boyfriend, and she clung hard to me. About a month before we broke up, she moved 4 houses down the alley from me. That turned out to be too much, and after a stupid fight, I broke things off. Predictably, she was very upset. She wanted me back and at least wanted to stay friends, but I told her I needed space. She never gave me any. Every morning there were notes on my car windshield, gifts I'd bought her returned to my doorstep, constant texts and messages. After a few weeks, things seemed calmer, but then she started with the whole "you ruined my life" routine. As her messages became more aggressive, I decided I wanted nothing to do with her and just wanted my belongings back. The main thing she still had was a red oak turntable stand I had designed and built in shop class in high school. I had lent it to her temporarily until she had a better setup for her record player. She refused to return it and then told me she had smashed it. I was running out of options, to the point that my mother called her and asked for my things back. That went nowhere. She swore at and yelled at my mom. Up until then, I'd kept my cool dealing with this emotional wreck. Eventually, I snapped. I yelled at her on the phone. My roommates and I waited for her to come home from work. When she saw us at her door, she ran. I chased her down, got in her face, and demanded my table back. She refused again and kept walking toward a nearby train station. Then she started screaming, "He's trying to essay me." This was during peak hours. I left immediately because absolutely not. Later that evening, my roommate managed to contact her, get my stuff back, and calm her down. So things seemed fine until the next morning. While I was sitting in my car at a red light, she walked up, started screaming at me, kicked my car door with her boots, and tried to smash my window with the handle of an umbrella. I got out of the car and she stepped back. Before I could really say or do anything, the light turned green, so I got back in and drove off. I was furious. She texted me when I got to work, apologizing. I reported the incident to the police as a precaution. Later that week, she texted me saying she was trying to off herself. I told her to get help, and that was the last thing I ever said to her. 2 months later, the casing around my side view mirror was broken off overnight, almost certainly her doing. She has since moved back to her hometown. She could never keep a job or a place while she lived here, and this whole situation cost her a lot of friends as well. I know she's a Redditor and could possibly read this. If she does, I hope she understands how badly this messed me up and that she is, without question, the craziest person I have ever met. Story 42. She told me her neighbor had come to her house and essayed her and that she was writing a passing away note. She said I needed to come over and be there for her. All of this happened after she cheated on me with her ex and I dumped her. I immediately blocked her phone, number, and on Facebook. Several months later, she got pregnant with her ex, they got married, and are now already divorced. I think I dodged a bullet. Story 43. After selling all of our stuff, she left me while I was in Afghanistan, taking our newborn daughter with her. The whole time, she believed no one else would ever be interested in me, and that I'd eventually follow her to Florida. Fast forward 5 years. I got out of the Army, married a friend I'd known since elementary school, earned a 4-year degree, landed my dream job, bought a house with my new wife, and had a son, the first to carry on my surname. We're also looking forward to kid number 5 soon. My ex, meanwhile, sits at home with her parents or in a shitty trailer, playing Second Life and wasting all the child support I send her. She's still single, has put on about 60 pounds, and has moved at least 5 times since going to Florida. Despite claiming there was so much opportunity there for her, I stayed in the Army for a second term so she could go to college and finish, with the plan that I'd get out afterward and go to school myself. She later had telemarketers calling my wife, posted strange web pages with titles like, "I can see you, Hazy and Hazy's wife," and sent rotten e-cards to my wife. We eventually confronted her after I did an IP lookup, which traced back to Cocoa Beach, Florida. We only know one person there who even had the information needed to pull that kind of crap. I know my thought process here is pretty discombobulated, but I keep remembering more and more nonsense as I go. Still, this should be enough for this thread. Story 44. I had an ex who stalked me online for a while. He found my NSFW Tumblr blog, which had a few topless photos of me, and started posting them on Reddit, 4chan, and 420chan, linking people back to my blog. He also posted them with my name, even though the blog itself was anonymous. I guess he thought I couldn't see where my traffic was coming from. He talked crap about me and showed the photos to mutual friends, but they backed me up and told him he was being a creep. When I texted and called him to stop, he wouldn't respond, except through anonymous hate messages on Tumblr telling me to move on with my life and leave him alone. Apparently, he didn't realize he was the one latching on and refusing to leave me alone. I changed my blog URL multiple times, but he kept finding it through other blogs. Eventually, I publicly called him out and posted his face. After that, he stopped. Story 45. My ex turned out to be schizophrenic. When we first met, it was far more manageable than it was when we broke up about 5 years later. We were in our late teens to early 20s, which is when schizophrenia tends to develop more fully. That's only slightly relevant, I guess. After I broke up with him, he became convinced he was going to off me. I had seen him like this before with people he felt had wronged him badly enough. And it was terrifying because I knew exactly what he was capable of, even though I naively believed he would never do something like that to me. He used to keep pipe bombs under his bed, just in case. He needed them for someone, and at one point he was determined to make thermite to put into someone's car. When I ended things, he did not take it well. In his mind, I was his, and leaving him was something he could not tolerate. He told me he was going to burn my house to the ground with me trapped inside. We lived 3 houses away from each other. I hoped it was like the thermite situation, something he would eventually abandon once he came to his senses, but I had always been the one to calm him down before. I later found out that he spoke to a mutual friend, one of the very few people he ever confided in. That friend told me that my ex, completely emotionless and deadly serious, described in detail how he planned to burn my house down and make sure I died in the fire. I'm incredibly grateful to that friend for quietly and calmly talking him down and for mentioning, almost casually, that now someone else knew about the plan. There was no way he could carry it out without ending up imprisoned. I like to believe he wouldn't have actually done it, but honestly, I really don't know. Story 46. He walked around my house at night knocking on the air conditioning units and windows. He lost his cell phone in my backyard while stalking me. He put something in the gas tank of my vehicle, and after spending $3,500 in repairs, the vehicle was repossessed. He broke into the same vehicle and cut up my children's jackets and pocketbooks, along with his children's things that were inside. He put a loaded .357 in my face and said he would off me. He pulled a shotgun on me and called his children to tell them he was going to off me. He stalked me constantly, but the cops were part of the good old boys club and didn't believe me. Eventually, my neighbors saw him drive up to my house at night with his headlights off, get out of his truck, walk to my vehicle, open the gas door, and fumble around with it for a few minutes. This was the second vehicle. Then he left. With witnesses, I finally got him into court, and he got a whole 2 months in jail for stalking. That was 14 years ago. I'm still afraid of him, and his children hate him. Oh yeah, the judge ordered him to return my furniture. He had urinated all over everything, even his kids' mattresses. I burned it all. Story 47. After I broke up with my girlfriend, crazy story linked and all, she and her 35-year-old fling, we were both 21 at the time, got wasted on vodka and decided it was a great idea to slash all 4 of my brand new tires on my new frigging car. I woke up the next morning in January with a midterm in 1 hour to 4 slashed tires. I called the cops and gave them her information and the information of the a-hole I thought she was with. After the police contacted him, he immediately paid for my new tires, but only after making me sign a barely legible contract saying I wouldn't sue him and that damages were paid. He was a yoga instructor. Story 48. We broke up almost 4 years ago, but we still have a few mutual friends who keep me updated. He got "Hold Me, I Can't," apparently a quote from Edward Scissorhands, tattooed across his chest and tells everyone it's for me. He regularly posts old pictures of us on Twitter and Facebook with captions like, "My future wife, I'll wait forever," and "My forever love. I live 2 hours away now, but if I ever move back home, I'm pretty sure I'll need a restraining order." Story 49. My story is pretty amateur compared to others on here. My ex broke up with me over the phone. Later, I found out she had been cheating on me with her ex like 2 exes ago. After the breakup, she wanted me to return all of her belongings. She demanded that I bring them to campus so we could have a talk. I told her she'd have to come pick them up at my place because I wasn't going out of my way for her. She came over and I gave her everything she wanted, plus a 3-piece painting she had made for me. I told her I no longer needed or wanted it. She got furious and tried to make it look like I was the one cheating on her. She asked if I was seeing someone else or if I had cheated on her. The nerve of her, considering she was the one who broke up with me over the phone. Anyway, I reminded her she was my first girlfriend and then she left. About an hour later, my brother walks in and tells me there's something around my car. I go out and find the whale plushie I had given her, named after me, shredded, with its stuffing shoved between the hinges of my car door handle. It makes no sense since she was the one who broke up with me. Story 50. I dated this girl for about 2 months and the signs that she was crazy were there from day one. I ended up breaking up with her and she flipped out. She went nuts, saying things like no one loved her and all the usual crazy girlfriend stuff. She stayed friends with my roommates and one night came over while I was gone. For some reason, my roommates let her go through my stuff and she found a box of condoms. She completely freaked out, crying and losing it. Then, about 3 months later, I started getting Facebook messages from her at 4 a.m., begging me to take her back, asking why I didn't love her, why no one loved her, why people didn't stay her friends. I didn't respond, but she saw that I'd viewed the messages. That sent her completely off the deep end. She sent maybe 20 more messages in less than 10 minutes. I still didn't respond. Next came the phone calls. My phone rang off the hook for a solid 3 hours, calls back to back all morning. The only breaks were when she sent me Facebook messages. I was at my new girlfriend's house when this happened. When I got home, I had hundreds of messages on Skype and AM from her, all either calling me names or begging to get back together. Story 51. I've had 2 or 3 exes who ended up as stalkers, either online or in real life, but my favorite was the one who threatened to stab me when I stopped by to check on her, at her own suggestion, because she said she'd been feeling depressed. She was legitimately unstable. There was another who led me to believe we might work through some of our issues and invited me on vacation with her, apparently so I could watch her sleep with 3 of my former friends. Still, my buddy's story tops mine. His ex scaled the wall of his apartment building and climbed in through his bedroom window. He came home late from work and found her sitting in the dark on his bed. She accused him of sleeping with someone else, which he wasn't and which shouldn't have mattered anyway since they were already broken up. Then she stabbed him in the back with a pencil. The pencil snapped off and had to be removed from his back. Story 52. We were together for about a year before she went overseas for school. The relationship didn't survive the semester apart and turned into an on-again, off-again mess. She broke up with me on the last night of my visit during fall break. We tried again when she came back. On her first night home, she got drunk at a bar, we walked back together, and got into an argument where she claimed I pushed her and she fell. That didn't happen. A few weeks later, when I refused to get back together with her, she swallowed a bottle of Tylenol and was taken to the hospital, where she was committed for 72 hours. The physical intimacy was great, though. Story 53. My ex, whom I dated for about 5 months, is an alcoholic whose parents enable him. While we were dating in college, things got so bad that I sometimes had to to wake up his roommates to help get him into bed after a night of drinking. He even wet the bed with me in it, twice. I should have left then. He kept drinking heavily behind my back and would claim that the 6 to 12 beers I saw him drink were all he'd had that night when, in reality, he'd already been drinking much more hard liquor before I arrived. Even so, it wasn't the drinking that finally ended things. It was his terrible attitude and clingy behavior, barely letting me move more than a few feet away at parties, pouting like a child if I tried to talk to other people. After we broke up, he spent weeks promising he would change, trying to prove it with poorly disguised attempts to hide his problems better. I played nice for a while, but once I was ready to move on, I finally snapped and gave him a very final never dating again ultimatum over Facebook chat. I spent a couple of days dodging him and screening calls until he showed up at a homecoming party I was attending. He flipped me off, shot dirty looks at me all night, and started harassing any guy who dared talk to me, most notably one guy who was only chatting with me because we realized we were neighbors. Several of my male friends escorted him out, but he came right back in. Eventually, one guy walked me home because he was genuinely concerned about my roommate's safety and mine. Once we got home, we dismissed him and went to bed like normal. Around 3 in the morning, I woke up to find my air conditioning unit fallen out of my now open window right next to my bed. Freaked out, my roommate and I debated whether it had fallen out on its own or been pushed, then decided to close and lock the window and deal with it in the morning. Almost immediately after I rolled over, the air conditioning unit came crashing back through the window, shattering the glass. I saw my ex running toward our backyard. I called 911 and the police picked him up. He spent the weekend in jail until his parents came to get him and take him home. Despite all of this, we still have mutual friends. No one believes going home helped him at all, not even Alcoholics Anonymous, since he lied and drank even while earning chips. He's been back at school once since then and dropped out again, only to announce he's returning a third time with his parents' blessing. They're convinced group therapy is working. It isn't. I avoid him completely now and regret ever thinking it was a good idea to stay together as long as we did. I'm now dating a great guy who still has to deal with him in our social circle, but thankfully, none of the chaos is aimed at me anymore. Story 54. I worked for a divorce lawyer for 10 years. Some of the crazier stuff I've seen. Older couple with grown children decided to spend one last Christmas together as a family. He gave her a cookbook. She keyed his truck in front of the entire family. Same couple as above. She found out he had met a new girlfriend online. She went into his office, grabbed his monitor, old school big one, and tried to leave with it. She was screaming that she paid for that GD computer, and she'd be damned if he was going to use it to hunt ores. Guy drove to her neighborhood, parked half a block from her house, got all bare in his truck, then walked half block and broke into her house. She wasn't home. She walked in to find him bare and crying in her kitchen. He was sober. Woman didn't want her mom seeing the kid anymore because mom liked ex-husband. Accused mom and dad of essaying grandchild. Said ex knew about it. When ex still got visitation with kid, she took the child and ran. They got her on kidnapping and got her on tape saying that she knew the allegations were false, but she was mad. Dad was given full custody of the kid. Story 55. Showed up at my place months after we split. I went outside to talk. He started to get aggravated, so I went inside, but he wouldn't let me. Closed the door, shoved his way in, smacked me in the face. Got a small bruise and cut near my eye. Realized what he did and left. I called the cops. Cops showed up, took a statement from me, got in touch with my ex, met up with him to give him the citation, and even invited him to church. My ex also would post on his Facebook and give people my phone number so they could call me and ask about what a crazy bitch I was when we were together. Only one girl took him up on it and called, and he got mad at me because the lies I told her made her stop talking to me. A little after we broke up but were still living together, he was trying to find a new girl to live with. Messaged some girls on POF and OKC asking if he could move in. When one girl said no, he called her an uncaring bish and so on. I pointed out that she didn't even know him, and he hadn't even asked her out. He just sent a message asking her out. He was genuinely surprised she said no. A few weeks before he smacked me, he also showed up at my boyfriend's apartment while we were packing it up. He found a few pics my boyfriend posted online of his car and apartment and was able to stalk around to find where it was. Showed up with his kid, 6-year-old, and a knife at like 11 p.m., telling me how he should stab us both. Eventually, he left. Story 56. Oh boy. I went to her place to break up with her. A lot of my stuff was there due to the fact that we were living together while I was working. At this point, I was living back at school for another semester. Her eyes lit up wide with crazy. Imagine a dragon taking a big breath before scorching the earth with fiery rain. She grabbed pretty much anything she could find and hurled it at me. Picture frame off the wall, plate, fork, a speaker, etc. If you can dodge a rhinestone-encrusted picture frame, you can dodge a ball type of situation. Once she calmed down some, voice was gone pretty much from screaming. We talked for a bit. She begged me to stay incessantly talking mad, crazy depression shit. She was not 100% stable, and a straight-up lying POS. Then over the next 3 months, month 1, 20 calls per day, plus many texts about how she was depressed and might end it all. I had to go to the university counselor for advice. It was pretty rough hearing all of it. When one of her self-harm threats got serious, I had to call the police, ambulance. It got to a point where I had cut all contact, and her dad actually called me to make sure that I wasn't contacting her so she could move on. I wasn't contacting her at that point. Month 2, when she realized I had cut out, she contacted my best friend's wife to get me to talk to her. Oh, and it was too important to talk about over the phone, so I had to go see her. My first instinct was crazy as pregnant, so I went to see her, and sure enough, she said she was preggers. I've never been so panicked, but I messed up. What I should have done was drive to the first drugstore, buy 10 pregnancy tests, and hand them to her. She also contacted the girl I was seeing at the time, no relation whatsoever, on Facebook with a message that started with, "Hi, I'm his pregnant ex-girlfriend," and proceeded to tell her I'm a horrible person. Month 3. Had to stay in contact since she was with child, but nothing made sense, timing-wise, the size, etc. Every time I was about to go to a doctor's appointment with her, all of a sudden it was changed to a time that was impossible for me to make. I was 45 minutes away, or she wouldn't answer the phone and say she accidentally left it at home, BS. At this point, I'm going through finals. Hadn't told my parents since I wasn't 100% sure it was true. Had that dirty gut feeling. Managed to pass my shit and did very well. Finally, a couple of days before Christmas that year, the whole thing came. Unraveled. It seemed like she was doing it to ruin my life and make me screw up in school. I am so damn happy I don't have a kid with that crazy, crazy woman. Story 57. She had broken up with me to be with the guy she was sleeping with behind my back. A few months down the road, she heard I was talking to someone new. Apparently, this didn't sit well with her because within a week, the girl I had started talking to had her car mysteriously vandalized overnight. Someone had taken a brick and ran it along the driver's side of her car and threw it through the front window. There was no way to prove it was her, but people my ex didn't get along with had a tendency to have damaged cars shortly after a fight with her. Fast forward a couple of years and she popped up at my front door. She had had a kid with an old friend, and they were engaged. For some reason, she thought it would be a good time to reunite with me. I told her I had moved on and wished her the best of luck. The next night, all the locks on my brand new car had super glue covering them. Story 58. Not the most crazy story compared to others here, but my brother has an ex that claimed he abused her with a hanger or something like that. She did it to herself and then tried to say it was him. She also stabbed him with a knife in the same breakup fight. The cops eventually figured it all out, but the charges were minor for her. If it had been the other way around, my brother probably would have gone to jail for a while anyway. After all that, she would still text him. She would say how she misses him, how her son misses him, how she was sorry, that they should get back together. Stuff like that. This went on for years. In fact, I'm not certain she has stopped to this day. This was like 7 years ago. I know for certain it was still happening at least 3 years ago. Story 59. He walked several miles from his apartment to mine and slashed all 4 of my tires while I was at work. Then, a couple of days later, he left a 3-page handwritten poem about his feelings on my porch. Then, he kept calling, even though I had cut off all contact as soon as the tire thing happened. Then, a few years later, he sent me a Facebook message with the song Somebody That I Used to Know by Gautier. Leave me alone, dude. You were abusive and the relationship should have been over long before all that. Story 60. She was in the process of moving out but wouldn't volunteer to be the one to stay elsewhere. I tried to be civil and stayed at a friend's house until she was ready to move. It was getting too weird being in the same place. Rather than make things uglier, I figured I'd make the space. She ended up staying about a month longer than anticipated, which she never paid for. Attempted to give my cat to another ex-girlfriend, banged with my best friend in my bed, and went on a date with my grandfather. That one I really can't wrap my head around. When she finally moved out, she took my newly purchased 52-inch LED TV, video games, game systems, and a number of other miscellaneous things. Story 61. My former girlfriend had a crazy ex. She didn't waste much time switching to me, and here are his highlights after she broke it off. 1. Tried to follow her to a concert she had lied about going to with her sister. Confronted the sister, demanding to know where she was. 2. Broke into my bedroom window while we were in bed, early on a Monday morning. Had a light scuffle with me while I was all bare and tried to grab her, etc. Cops were called. I still don't know how he knew where I lived. All he got was a trespass conviction after a ton of lawyer fees. I now have a loaded handgun in the nightstand. 3 came back into their apartment after he had a restraining order and kissed her while she was sleeping. There was a bit more. Story 62 hailed her into family court for non-payment of child support. Practically before the judge had opened her mouth, my ex turned to me and said, "You owe me lots of money." Our son had been living with me at her insistence. I told the judge that I'd seen this coming perhaps, so I had asked the child support collection department to accept my support payments while the son was with her and send them on to her. Told the judge that if CSC's records showed I owed anything, I'd be glad to pay it. Never heard from her again on the subject. Story 63. My ex cheated. A lot. I broke up with her while she was mid-3 score. MFF at our high school, auditorium loft. After the breakup, she faked a pregnancy. She befriended the girl I liked, told her she was having my kid, and that I was forcing her to have an abortion. I asked the girl I liked to junior prom, and my ex coincidentally said she had scheduled the abortion for the same day, and I had to go. I refused since I knew it was a lie. After the abortion, she claimed they screwed it up and she had a severed artery. That, in turn, led to a fake heart condition and her saying she was dying. She went as far as putting on makeup for 2 months to look sick and faking a heart murmur at school. EMTs even came. One was a family friend, confirmed it was all fake. Basically, I confronted her about it, and she acted like I was the crazy one and had made everything up. Classic. Story 64. One time, when we were in an argument, she squeezed the crap out of her forearms until she had red marks and yelled, "See what you make me do to myself?" Then, she called her mom to have her picked up, which seemed peculiar since she had her car at my place. She got in her mom's car and they didn't leave for some time, just dutifully stayed out front. You stop paying attention, figuring she's just venting or something. Long story short, she told her mom I had squeezed her arms and almost got pinned for domestic abuse until she came clean after they drove off with me in the back of the cop car. She planned on staying with me afterward because her confessing was supposedly showing me that she forgave me for the fight. Story 65. Well, not exactly a girlfriend, but an online date. I went on one date with a girl from OkCupid. We had been texting for a week before that as I was out of town. I could sense she seemed a little unstable at best. Being the horny guy I was, I didn't really seem to care. Or maybe I was just kind of oblivious. We met up at a bar, came back to my place, and hooked up that night. The next day, she asked if we were boyfriend and girlfriend. I said something along the lines of, I'll go on more dates, but we're definitely not GF. An hour later, her friend texts me about how she had a heart attack. Now, if it's someone you just hooked up with, it's surprising how much you might care about them. I kept asking questions about her condition, but all her friend wanted to do was talk about our relationship status, and that's when I sensed things were fishy. The next day, I called the hospital. You can legally find out if someone is there, but not the reason. I called, and of course, she wasn't there. I asked her to send me a picture of the hospital room. An hour later, she sent me a picture of the ER room at that hospital. I asked, "Are you lying?" She said, "No, that would be crazy." I called her bluff and relentlessly said she was lying, which she eventually admitted. Naturally, being the dumb A I was, I hooked up with her again. If you'd like, there is a part 2 of my extreme stupidity. Story 66. She called the cops and said I hit her. I didn't. I went to jail for 4 days. When I got out, I couldn't get my car or clothes as the officer I called to escort me refused to help. I had to walk to an ATM about 3 miles away, only to find my money gone. I slept outside until the next day when my buddy came to get me, and thankfully she liked him enough to give him my clothes and car. I was also unable to see my daughter, 2 at the time, until I went to court 2 months later. I was ultimately found not guilty because of lack of proof, although the judge said he was reluctant to make this finding, but was forced to based on the law. Again, I never laid a pinky on her. This all happened based solely on her word. Best advice I ever received was from my public pretender. He said, "Do yourself a favor and don't go back to her, or I'll be seeing you again." I followed his advice. Story 67. I dated a girl for 3 weeks before she started letting the crazy leak out of her. Ex-exotic dancer, drug issues, daddy issues, court battles, etc. She tried to pull the old "I'm pregnant with your child" routine when I broke things off with her. Turns out it was not my kid, and she had known all along that it was some douchebag she hated, yet still slept with when she got horny enough. She even admitted this to me and apologized profusely. I imagine being pregnant with some douchebag's baby is stressful, so I was tactful and supportive when I told her that I appreciated her honesty, but that it wasn't going to get us back together. She didn't like that. We have, or had, mutual friends, and she still tells them to this day, 6 years later, that it was my kid and that I forced her to get an abortion against her will. Story 68. She lied about her mother dying. We have a child together, but we're never married. After the 3rd or 4th time she moved out, the last time, after I had to serve her papers in another state because she absconded with our child, after she was legally forced to move back to town, and after I finally got full weekends with our daughter. 48 hours. My third or fourth weekend with her. She shows up at my door at 11 p.m., crying her eyes out. She says her mother has just died and that she wants to see the kid. Now, 11 p.m. is the magic hour after which I am legally not allowed non-familial company of the opposite gender during a custodial period. It's standard in my state. So my first thought is, this is BS. My second thought is, if this is not BS, why are you seeking solace from a 1-year-old? Children go to their parents for comfort, not the other way around. My third thought is, if I don't let her in, she'll take it as proof that I have someone here, and I'll never hear the end of it. So I let her in. She goes back to the kids' room. You have to walk through my bedroom to get there, and stands over her crib sobbing. After a few minutes, my daughter wakes up, sees her mother crying, and starts crying herself. Her mom picks her up and holds her for a few minutes, and they're both crying, so I tell her she needs to let our daughter get back to sleep and walk her to the door. Our daughter is 5 now and totally perplexed as to why I think her grandmother is dead. Every time they go to visit, her mom comes up with a new lie to explain their trip out of town. She also suddenly knows more people named Mimi than any reasonable person should. My daughter once asked me when we were alone why I didn't like Mimi and why I thought she was dead. I've never mentioned her maternal grandmother to her, and I just responded that I didn't dislike Mimi, and that while I did not know her very well, I did not think she was dead. She also once told my parents that I thought her Mimi was dead. I'm honestly not sure what I should do at this point, as I would like to minimize emotional damage this might do to my daughter. Calling her mother out on her lies has never been productive in the past. She has borderline personality disorder, for those of you unfortunate enough to know how that goes. Still, I feel rotten that it amuses me as much as it does.